Hey guys, this is Tressa with Gallup Coaching, and we want to take you from barrier to breakthrough. Welcome to our YouTube channel. This video is part of a series of live videos that we did called Count the Cost. In this series, we explore really practical ways to prepare for those big financial commitments that most of us will face. Things like buying a car, leasing an apartment, adopting a pet, and even things like doing your own taxes, investing your money, and setting up a budget. So if you are a young adult just getting started on your financial journey, or if you just haven't learned how to adult yet with your money, then this series offers a lot of tips, tricks, and advice to help you count the cost. Today's video is all about preparing to lease an apartment. So if you're a young adult just getting out on your own for the first time, or if you're moving into an apartment and this is a new experience for you, then you're going to find a lot of great information in this video to help you make the right decision and take a little bit of the stress out of such a big financial step. So let's get started. Hey everyone, it's Tressa here checking in on you all. We're here doing another Count the Cost live video for you guys. And today we're going to be talking about everything that you need to prepare to move into an apartment. So maybe you're still living at home and are wondering if you are ready to move out financially, if you have everything that you need. Or maybe you you're in a transition in life and you're going to be moving into an apartment for the first time. Well, we've gathered a lot of information for you guys, and we really do have a lot to talk about today. And I have Holly here with me because, as you know, she has to be a part of every video. There is no going in the other room. She has to be where we are. So if you see her moving around back here. All right, so while we're waiting for a few people to get on, I want to tell you guys a little story about my son and when he first moved out of home. He was still in school part-time, but he was also working full-time. And he decided to go ahead and move out and was looking at apartments and decided that he could afford to move into an apartment all on his own with no roommates. And so he did. He found a really nice place and got all moved in. It was very exciting. I think he had a 1-year lease on that apartment. And before that 1 year was up, he came to the harsh realization that he could not afford to live in that particular apartment on his own. And his budget was so tight that he quickly got behind and ended up almost losing his car because he wasn't able to make the payments. And so this is a story that I've heard over and over again with young people. They're just really not financially prepared when they go to move out. And sometimes they do it anyway because they just can't wait to get out. And, they put that ahead of what's good for them financially. And it can really set them back and cause a lot of problems later on and really destroy their confidence. So if you're a parent, I hope you can share this
with other parents as well that have kiddos that are going to be moving out soon. All right, so we're just gonna jump right in, and if you're watching this live or on replay, I hope you have a pen and a paper because we are going to cover a lot in a short amount of time. And these are just the very basics that we've sort of condensed down for you. And on this one, I am gonna put a checklist in the comments on the video with the highlights of what we're going to touch on here, just so you can go back to that checklist if you're needing to figure out if you're ready to move out. So we're going to break this down into two sections. The first one will be, are you ready? Can I afford to rent an apartment? And if you hear that noise, that's also Holly, and it's very loud, and I apologize. All right, so what do you need to prepare to spend when you go out apartment hunting? There are 6 things to prepare for. So the first one is application fees. When you go to an apartment complex and you decide that you like it and you want to rent an apartment there, you're going to have to fill out an application fee so that they can decide if you meet their rental criteria. So that fee can be anywhere from $15 to $50 on average, and it's usually non-refundable. So you don't want to fill out an application to rent an apartment unless you're pretty sure you want to live there. And they use this fee, it's sort of like a paperwork fee. They're going to do a background check on you, a credit check on you, and it covers those costs. So they will show you what their rental criteria and conditions and guidelines are for renting an apartment there before you fill out an application. Make sure you read that so that you're not wasting your money on those application fees. And depending on apartment availability in your area and how quickly you want to get into one, you may plan on doing this application fee 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So make sure you have some money set aside for that and that you're not surprised by those fees. Different types of apartments may have other fees for other paperwork and processes, but that one's pretty standard. All right, you also want to make sure you have the money for a security deposit. So this is going to be the deposit that you put down for when you first rent the apartment. Usually you pay first month's rent and the security deposit. And this is just to cover any damages that may occur while you're in the apartment. So in general, you'll want to check and make sure on this. But in general, it's about equal to 1 month's rent. So if your rent is $900, then your security deposit may be $200. It could be less or more, depending on the places that you're looking at. If you have pets, especially a big one like Holly here, you will have to pay a pet deposit. So your security deposit to get into that apartment will be higher. To make sure that you get the security deposit back, because if you take care of your new place, then you should get this deposit back. But to do that, you want to make sure when you move in that you take pictures and document any damages, any stains on the carpet, anything wrong with the walls when you first move in, so that management knows that was there, it was pre-existing before you moved in. And then when you move out, of course you want to take good care of the place, you know, wild parties and all that. Make sure you clean up after yourself. When you move out, make sure you do repair any damages or and clean really well before you move out. And you should get most of your security deposit, if not all of it, back. Some apartments do have a deep cleaning that they require to be done no matter how clean your apartment is, and they'll take that out of your security deposit. Okay, and then you want to think about the actual rent itself. So how much should you have for rent? What can you afford? A good guideline is not to spend more than 25% of your gross income on housing. So if you make $4,000 a month, 25% of that would be $1,000. So that would be your rental budget. Some people say 30%. I feel that's pushing it, especially if this is your first time. So 25% is a good guideline there. Most leases, apartment rental leases, are going to be between 6 and 12 months. So you want to make sure you've got good income coming in and you can make that commitment to live there for 6 to 12 months, however long your lease is. And there are pretty hefty fees for breaking that lease. It is a contract, a legally binding contract, and if you break that, they will charge you a lot. Also, if you want to live on a ground floor apartment versus a second story or third floor apartment, it is going to be more expensive. So the higher you go, the less you pay. All right, the next thing we want to think about is utilities. So these are part of your living costs. You have water, electric, garbage pickup, and maybe internet or Wi-Fi. So you want to find out, are those included in the price of the rent? Are they not? And do you pay those directly to the utility companies or to the apartment management company? Sometimes electric and internet especially will be outside of the management company. So you just want to get real clear on how you pay those, what your costs are going to be, and electric is going to be the most variable one in general. And you can ask your neighbors, ask other people that live there what their electric bills run. And I would say talk to the people that live there as much as you can. And I know people don't do that much anymore. They sort of think it's weird when a stranger talks to them, but it really is going to help you be really prepared before you move into a place. All right, another thing to consider are extra amenities that they might charge you for, like garage or covered parking for your car. So if they have anything like that that might be extra, you'll want to know how much that is and if that's worth it to you. All right, and finally, the last thing you need to be prepared to move into an apartment is make sure you have an emergency fund. So if you are living paycheck to paycheck and you have not been able to build up any savings, you are not ready to move out. And my son also learned this the hard way, and many have. In general, you want to have 3 to 6 months of expenses, all of your expenses that it takes to live. But at least having some sort of emergency fund, at least 1 month's rent, is going to really help, because something is always going to happen. Things always happen. You need that cushion in case you can't work, or you get laid off and need to find another job, or life hits you really hard. So an emergency fund and extra margin every month in your budget. You don't need to be so tight on your budget that a little bit higher electric bill is going to get you behind. So that number, that tipping point in your budget is going to be different for everyone, but you need some margin, you need some wiggle room. All right, and there are income restricted apartments that will have different fees and different types of paperwork. So if you're looking at those, they're government funded and have a lot more requirements. So be prepared to spend a little more time and have a lot more paperwork to go through and read if you're looking at those. All right, so you've gone through your checklist and you've decided, all right, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to rent an apartment. So here are some ways to protect that investment. Here are some ways Things to think about before you sign the lease and make that financial commitment. So picking the right apartment is really important. You want to look at reviews of different apartments and make sure that you look at the dates on those reviews, because they could be from last year or the year before, and if they're really bad, they could be different now. There's a really high turnover rate in apartment management, so just make sure that the reviews you're looking at are current and up to date, and pay attention to them as well. They can really tell you a lot. If you're concerned about safety, and most of us are, you might look at a gated versus a non-gated community. Gated doesn't always mean that it's safer though. You'll want to drive through the area, especially in the evenings, maybe when everyone is getting home. See what sort of activity is happening in and around where everyone is living. It's also going to let you check out the parking situation, which can sometimes be pretty congested, be pretty bad. It might give you an opportunity to see more people out and about so that you can talk to your neighbors about the safety of the area and any other questions that you have. The apartment management is not going to be very helpful in asking about safety. You can also check out online maps that show the geographical, did I say that right? Crime rates in that area. Also know that your vehicles can be more vulnerable, especially if you're not in a gated community. This actually happened to a family member of mine recently. They had the wheels and tires stolen right off their car. So since then we have had those replaced and had some wheel locks put on there. But it's just another thing to consider, especially when you're thinking about safety. All right, you also want to think about your comfort when you're looking at what apartment is right for you. Do you want a first floor apartment, or do you mind walking upstairs to the third floor? There are pros and cons to both. There are cons to having a first floor apartment, and a little bit of research can help you decide which one is best for you. And then you do want to walk through the actual apartment that you will be leasing, not just the model apartment, because the location of that apartment could make a huge difference in your noise level, the lighting that comes through. Often there's some really bright lights that can be irritating. You want to make sure you walk through the actual apartment with the leasing manager, if at all possible. All right, so that's some things to look at when you're picking the apartment. And another consideration is roommates. So if you're a single person and trying to get by, it can be really hard to pay rent by yourself. So roommates is a really good idea, but you want to carefully consider who you choose to live with you. And if you've got some really good friends or someone that you know really well, that can be helpful, but you do want to maintain that relationship, right? It's not worth losing a friendship over just to save some money. So you want to maybe have them run through the same checklist that we did in the beginning. Can you afford it? Are you ready? If they are living paycheck to paycheck and don't have an emergency fund, that's a red flag. If something happens, then you're going to get stuck with the bad stuff. So I would recommend, if you can, have everyone put a couple of months worth of rent into an account just in case something happens. People flake out, they decide they want to move out, break the lease, get a new job, move away, or things just happen. Stuff happens with families, with jobs, things we can't control. And so that just takes a little bit of the stress out of the situation if we have something put aside for that. And also I would recommend not buying furniture together. This is another mistake that someone I know made. They decided to buy some nice things for the common living area, and they went in halves on it. And then when it came time to move out and they were going to different apartments, different states actually, they didn't know what to do with that stuff. And so if you need to buy things that others are going to use, maybe you can buy one thing and they can buy something else. But I wouldn't recommend going in half on something. You also want to make sure that all of the roommates are very clear about your expectations up front. And you don't have to go so far to have like a Sheldon roommate agreement from The Big Bang Theory, but just making sure everyone is clear and on the same page, especially if they've never rented an apartment before either. So guys, your friendships are very valuable and you want to keep them. So having a roommate can be a really great thing as long as you're prepared and everybody knows that they're all on the same page. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. And I want y'all to know that it doesn't have to be a really scary or stressful thing moving out and finding your own place. There can be a lot of paperwork, a lot of things to read, a lot of things to learn, but you can do it. And just think about how much you're gonna learn and how much easier it's going to be if you do it again. So yeah, your first place is not gonna be ideal. It never will. But later on, when you're in a better place and living somewhere that you just thought you'd never be, then you're gonna get to look back and realize how far you've come. All right, guys, we are going to sign off and answer any questions that pop up in the comments later, and look down there in the comments for that checklist that I'm gonna be adding in. And Warriors, we will see you next time.